Welcome to the Gavel. I am Terry Ikumi. Let's get right into the activities of federal lawmakers this past week. The Senate Committee on Army is taking the advocacy for early voting to the doorsteps of those who would most be affected. The committee met with the Chief of Army Staff, who was in full support of the bill. Here's a report on that.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Army, alongside members of the civil society organization Yaga Africa, were received by the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, at the conference room of the Army headquarters. The visit is part of the advocacy for the passage of the early voting bill.
In 2023, we had a voter turnout of 27.1%, so you can see the decline of the voters. So allowing early voting for military personnel and other deployed elections is not just a matter of fairness. It is a necessary step to restore confidence, to engage young Nigerians, and uphold the principle that those who defend democracy should not be excluded from it.
According to Senator Yaradua, during the 2023 general elections, nearly 2 million Nigerians were disenfranchised. 93,000 military and personnel of the Department of State Service deployed to monitor the exercise could not vote. Others include over 310,000 police officers, 200,000 members of the NYSC, 11,000 officers of correctional service, 350 officers of the EFCC, journalists, as well as thousands of election observers. The merits of the proposed bill were highlighted by the civil society group Yaga Africa.
Look at the number of people disenfranchised, as folks have disclosed. It is enough to determine electoral outcome. And if democracy is all about choice, all about participation, we shouldn't continue with a system that encourages exclusion.
Reflecting on his personal experience, the Chief of Army Staff throws his weight behind the proposed bill.
Most of us hardly have the opportunity to exercise our own franchise personally. On a personal note, I think in my entire career, I've only had cause to vote twice. So if you look at it, I think it's something that's worth looking at. So I need to say here that the bill is actually long overdue. So it's actually a very laudable effort by the Senator. So we appreciate you for coming up with this. You have all our support for all the bills as an army.
Senator Yaradua also briefed the senior military officers on other priority bills, including the Armed Forces Act Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2025, as well as the Armed Forces Trust Fund Establishment Bill, which he assures will be transparent and insulated from political interference.
The proposed law introduces wide-ranging reforms to strengthen military justice with clearer trial procedures, align penalties with modern realities, expand legal rights for personnel, enhance internal accountability, and modernize the entire system of military discipline. It has just passed the first reading. By the time we get to the second reading, we'll make available the document so that the military will look at it and make inputs before we get to the public hearing. So Nigeria is aligning itself with global trends, like the United States, which reformed its military justice system in 2016 to promote prosecutorial independence, or the United Kingdom, which mandates regular legislative reviews of its Armed Forces Act, or South Africa, whose reforms post-1994 embedded constitutional safeguards in military discipline. Nigeria is taking its place among modern democracies, committed to professional accountability for the armed forces. I wish to respectfully request the Chief of Army Staff endorsement and engagement with this reform process. We need the armed forces to own these changes and drive its implementation. Next is the Armed Forces Trust Fund Establishment Bill 2025. This bill seeks to create a dedicated and sustainable funding mechanism for the armed forces. The idea is simple: secure long-term capital financing for the modernization of our forces, the improvement of infrastructure, and enhanced welfare of our troops.
Well, as directed by the leadership of the National Assembly, committee engagements have continued regardless of the holidays. So let's turn to the House of Representatives now for some of the meetings which took place this past week.
The House of Representatives Committee on Area Councils and Ancillary Matters commenced hearing on Wednesday, June 4, following the resolution of the House on a motion to explore alternative approaches to resettling or integrating both indigenous and non-indigenous residents in the FCT.
To the People's Side of the 10th Assembly,
the hearing was declared open by the representative of the Speaker.
You have been invited here as part of our legislative process to enable you to express your views and make contribution during interactive section. Your views and contribution will guide this House in taking the necessary legislative steps to give every Nigerian, especially the indigenous people, a sense of belonging in the nation.
The committee chairman then set the tone for what the House considers to be an intervention for indigents affected by developmental projects.
The House of Representatives has mandated our committee to collaborate closely with the Honourable Ministers of the FCT and other relevant stakeholders in providing comprehensive, sustainable, and human-centered alternatives for the resettlement and reintegration of both indigenous and non-indigenous residents of the FCT.
In their contributions, representatives of the indigenous people of the FCT were opposed to the resettlement policy.
Infrastructure should be provided, and those who will be affected by the infrastructures development should be resettled within their domain, meaning in our ancestral homes.
We have really sacrificed our own land for the building of this nation. But at the end, we the indigenous people are having negative consequences.
While the EFCT indigents continue to reject the relocation policy of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, which focuses on resettling and compensating original inhabitants of areas affected by development, the House believes the issue must be done once and for all in a way that appeals largely to all parties involved. In the meantime, a request for extension of time by the FCDA is granted by the committee.
With regard to our memorandum, in fact, we are not yet ready. What really happened is a committee was set up, both FCTA and FCDA, to come up with a memorandum.
That's why I came to apologize on behalf of the stakeholders department so that we'll be given a time so that we'll come and do the presentation and also to submit our memorandum.
Meanwhile, the House Committee on Basic Education, at a meeting with the West Africa Examination Council, demanded explanation for the poor handling of the WAEC examinations, which has caused a huge public outcry and condemnation across the country.
This committee is not here to victimize you. No, you are holding a very sensitive office as head of WAEC. We rely on every information you are going to give to this committee. Nigerians rely on every information you are going to give to this committee. And that is why you people are here. We are not here to victimize you. We don't have any ulterior motive. Our motive is Nigeria. Our interest is Nigeria. Our concern is Nigerian educational sector. Building our children. Building the educational sector where our children will no longer write WAEC at the middle of the night or the next morning. I think that is the reason why you are here. So be very free to tell Nigerians what really happened. What led to that ugly incident?
I want to use this opportunity foremost to express sincere, deep-rooted apologies for what happened in the conduct of English language examination. It was never premeditated and never planned for. The events that led to that unfortunate situation started just about 3 days to the conduct of that examination. we were given what looks to be a compromised examination, and we swung into action knowing the implication of having a compromised examination. Now we went into the drawing board, we looked at strategies, and we strategized to ensure that the paper was not compromised. I want to inform you and Nigerians that we were able to achieve that, but unfortunately, much regretted, it opened up another problem, and that problem was the late commencement of examination.
The Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives has revealed that according to the Auditor General's report, over 250 billion naira in public expenditures remain unaccounted for. Chairman of the committee, Bamidele Salam, said this while briefing journalists at the National Assembly. The committee also listed high incidence of unauthorized virements, growing numbers of audit queries each fiscal year, and the reported cases of more than 60% of MDAs persistently failing to comply with financial regulations as trends which continue to erode public trust, undermine sustainable national development, and weaken our democratic institutions.
Almost all tiers of government, executive, legislative, and the judiciary have, at various points in time, had to have interventions on issues coming out of mismanagement of public resources. It is our belief, because when you have a country as large and as diverse as Nigeria, you have to put some things in place to ensure that you don't allow people to commit infractions and get away with it because of the span of time it takes to track most of this expenditure. There are quite a lot of gaps. But like I've said, we should also realize that there are movements towards closing those gaps. And one of the movements towards closing the gaps is in the area of reform. So when you close some of those gaps, you also achieve a certain degree of reducing, the propensity of people to, do all manner of things untoward with public resources. And we are looking forward to more of such reforms by government, and we're sure that this kind of a conference will bring up a number of issues that will translate into greater reforms by the executive and greater legislative action by the parliament.
Welcome back to the Gavel. Let's get the perspective of the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center on the bill to establish a commission which will regulate political parties. Here's the breakdown.
The bill to take away powers from INEC to regulate political parties has been a long-standing advocacy because INEC has always spoken about the need to unbundle its functions, being that it has been overburdened with so much to do. This has left the space of political parties in some ways unregulated and unmonitored. A lot of civil society organizations have pushed for a separate entity to regulate political parties' activities to ensure that internal party democracy is strengthened in Nigeria. However, this bill did not pass second reading in the National Assembly or in the House of Reps, and was one of the 7 constitutional alteration bills that failed second reading in this last week. A lot of arguments have come up for the need for the bill to be reintroduced because it will actually bring some sort of sanity to the political parties and the political party environment, because a lot of people think, and it has shown that political parties are actually one of the weakest links in our election process. If there is a new commission to regulate political parties, it will leave INEC solely with the function of conducting elections in Nigeria. across the year, even in the lead up to the general elections every 4 years, INEC conducts various by-elections. It also replaces legislators, and there are also governorship elections that happen within the years before the general elections. And so this will allow them to concentrate on conducting elections. It also means that the power to deregister parties based on performance will now move to this new commission. And the role of monitoring and making sure that political parties are effective will now be with the commission. I think it gives room for better monitoring. It gives room for a commission to pay close attention to the political parties, unlike what we have currently. So effective monitoring of political parties will also mean that some of the issues that arise at the courts after the elections will be dealt with. Some of these include party executive elections. So for instance, we have cases where political parties have two factions in many states in Nigeria. This gives rise to a lot of disputes when it comes to nomination of candidates before an election. It also means that this commission can look closely at campaign finances, which has always been a problem in Nigeria. We are not able to see if parties are within the ambit of what is given in the Electoral Act, if they go beyond, if they go under. So these are some of the issues that we expect that this commission will take a look at or regulate when it is formed. Expectedly, this commission should be able to prosecute erring political parties, which we do not have right now. And erring or prosecution and punishment could even be deregistering the party, ensuring that they do not contest in any other election, and a ban for some time. It could also mean that they are taken to court by the commission to ensure that they work within what has been stipulated in the Act.
And on Constituency Focus, our guest is Honourable Emmanuel Uguru, representing Abakaliki Izi constituency of Ebonyi State in the House of Representatives.
My constituency, where I visit almost every week. It doesn't matter what it costs me to go there. When you are nearer them, you know the way they feel, you know what they need and what they don't need. And like I said, they need employment. And I have attracted over 10. I'm not going to exaggerate. I am the deputy chairman, Federal Colleges of Education. I've given out jobs there. In the Federal Civil Service, graciously, I've also attracted. And in other areas, and I am not still counting. I am still not idle until I satisfy my conscience. Of course, the need for employment is so much. But when I do my own little, and the people will also do theirs, we're also doing something in the area of empowerment. Training and empowerment is also another source of lifting the people from where they are to the next level of getting to the next standard of their living. So employment, training, and empowerment, they go hand in hand. In my constituency, I am into mentorship of some youths in different fields of skill. Artisan is another area of employment. By the time they come out of it, they won't be idle. Because you discover today in Nigeria that especially on the education sector, some people go to read, come out of the university, and they discover the job is not there. So it is our duty to tell them, if you are reading a course, read a course, you come out to become self-reliant. Read a course, you come out to employ others. Don't be waiting for people to give you employment. You can employ. I also have given out 31 scholarships to the graduates. They are out there. If you need their names, I'll give you. It's obvious everywhere. I pay in the university of their choice, not outside Nigeria, but within Nigeria. from different communities of Izi and Abakaliki local government area. My governor, the best governor in Nigeria, to me, was the one who came and launched it by last May, and is counting. This is the second year I paid their fees. I paid their fees, 31 of them last 2 weeks. No, last week I paid their fees, and that's the second. I pay annually. So I think I'm doing a lot in that area so that my people will be better positioned. When you go to any society and the youths are not as many, then you know there's problem. In my society, in my constituency, we have over 80% of the youths, meaning that the future is very, very bright for us, especially if the youths are properly positioned. In other areas of, in the National Assembly, we have 3 key issues, which is our primary function. Every other one is extracurricular. One is oversight function. We oversight all government projects. And in Ebonyi, let me tell you, not minding that we are federal government, governor takes us along to even oversight his own projects. We go on supervision. We do a lot of things. And that is what governance should be. He does not know where you are or where you are not, as long as you are an Ebonyi man. That we are doing. I have also attracted some projects, even though those projects, like I said, is extracurricular. Our main curricula is oversight, lawmaking, and our constituency. And that's the reason why I visit the constituency very often. I've attracted boreholes in my area. There's no gainsaying, trying to prove that we are what we are not. And that is why we are happy with our governor, because he is going to the hinterlands. So when he is coming from this angle, the little we can do to complement with what he's doing, we go from the other angle. So I go out to the hinterland, giving them water in the capacity I can afford through my constituency or ZIP projects. I've also built some schools, both secondary and primary schools.
And that's all the time we have on The Gavel. Thanks for your time. Send feedback to The Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Kumi. Goodbye.